Hey, everyone. So my name is Suhas Subramaniam. I'm from the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy. And don't be fooled by my genes. I am a bureaucrat from Washington, D.C. There's a joke. How many bureaucrats does it take to screw a light bulb? The answer is 20, 19 to tell everyone how great they're doing at screwing the light bulb in, and 1 to screw the light bulb into a faucet. So how many people have heard some version or form of this statement, that government regulations are too slow to adapt to technology and innovation? Anyone? Or has anyone said it? Yeah, there's a lot of you. Well, I said it myself, too, before I joined government. I was out in Silicon Valley advising tech companies. And I felt like, government regulation was slow. It was a little bit clumsy. This was kind of the equation I had in my mind, and I don't know if you all do as well. So, government wants to regulate tech because they're very reactive to their constituencies, and they don't necessarily understand technology very well, and the regulations often come out kind of clumsy or reactive, and so it leads to a sad face. It's not a great situation. So therefore, government is kind of like in a sad state where it's always reactive, it's always on its heels, and so I think, after 2 years in the outgoing administration, I think it's important that we talk about kind of the work that the administration has done on trying to address this issue. So it's good to have someone at the top who cares a lot about technology. So here's the president of the outgoing president of the United States and the Prime Minister of Germany, Angela Merkel. They're using VR themselves. And so even though it's mostly symbolic, it's still important that that our leaders are aware of the technology and are using it themselves. And so the president went, in conjunction with Google, put together a 360-degree tour of Glacier National Park. I know some of you may have read about that. Recently, we also released a tour of the White House, a 360-degree tour of the White House. Felix and Paul Studios and Oculus helped put that together. And so I encourage everyone to go on Facebook and take a look at the tour. And then there's me doing the tour on the White House campus, and here's the president doing it himself. I'm not quite sure what he's looking at. There's a lot of memes in our office about speculating what he was looking at. But I think it's important that the people making technology policy use these tools themselves and have knowledge of these tools. And so, one thing to take away is, maybe it's your local government or state government, maybe it's the federal government, doing those demos for them as well, and not just companies or not just investors, right? So all of this is really important. And so then the question is, how do we get back to, how does government keep pace with AR development and encourage innovation in the space? And so we've done a lot in the past 8 years to address this issue. And the first thing we've done is get the technologists who are making the products into government. And so the first thing the president did when he came in was start the Office of the Chief Technology Officer, which is the office I work in. And so having a Chief Technology Officer that's reporting directly to the president and advising them on the latest in technology developments, maybe if there's an issue that might not readily invoke technology as a solution to it, having a technology person at the table, say a national security issue, to say, well, there's these technologies out there, like AR technologies that can help ground troops. So having a chief technology officer at the table reporting directly to the president has been incredibly helpful. Having a chief data scientist, how can we make the most of the government's data that it's collected, and how can we harness the power of data to benefit all of citizens? The U.S. Digital Service. So I don't know if anyone's been to the DMV lately or tried to renew their passport, but it's historically been a really tough process. But if we had the people who are making restaurant apps in Silicon Valley coming out and working in government, the service delivery of government can be a lot better, and that's what's happened recently. Having the citizen and looking at them as a customer is so important, because if citizens have a poor experience with government, they'll say, well, government doesn't work for me, and it's broken, and so we need to privatize X, Y, and Z. And so I think that's an important thing to note. And then finally, the Tech Policy Task Force, which is a lot of what I do, which is getting those techies from Silicon Valley who are making restaurant apps, not only to build services and build websites, but also to help advise on policy. And so the task force has at the White House has all the heads of the White House components, so the head of the National Security Council, the head of the Domestic Policy Council, but also the Chief Technology Officer and people who have worked in tech like myself. I think that's really important to have both the techies and the lawyers, the communications people all together coming up with tech policy recommendations. So there's the techies in government, but then there's techies who can advise the government from the outside, like you. So we came out with a report on artificial intelligence in the fall, 2 reports actually. One was called Preparing for the Future of AI. And so I want you to imagine that those eyes up there are actually ours, so preparing for the future of AR. The same lessons apply. The administration does believe that if we have everyone at the table, industry, civil society, and government, coming together and working on sort of how we're going to take on some of the challenges, whether it's privacy, whether it's data protection, whether there's some issues that come up on the fly that no one expected, we need to be able to get together at a moment's notice and talk about these issues and come up with thoughtful, reasoned policies. So what does the federal government care about these days? And so security and privacy is usually at the top. Cybersecurity has been in the news a lot. A lot of the, I think, applicable policies to this room is the IoT security policies that are out there. And so, I'd say half a dozen reports from various agencies have come out over the past 3 or 4 months. They're not hard to find, but IoT security is really on the radar, including Congress. Congress came with a report recently as well. And so that's probably the top issue these days. Fairness, safety, and governance. So there isn't going to be a specific AR law that's going to come out anytime soon. If it is, it's usually going to be probably positive and probably not a lot of teeth, to be honest. But what will happen is all the AR companies out there will have to comply with existing law. And so thinking about how your company frames things and thinks about how potential local and federal laws would apply to your company is really important. And another thing is more positive is telling the story about your product. So how can you use AR for public good? The government is looking to think about how we can solve some of the issues of our day and solve some of the social problems that are out there. And AR, from everything I've seen in the past day or two, there's so many applications to AR, and so the federal government cares about that as well. And then procurement of AI, and so it's a related issue, and it's if we're seeing that there's a lot of beneficial uses, maybe federal agencies can use it. So right now the national security agencies are probably more interested in the procurement of AI because they have very specific uses for it. But eventually, if there procurement of AR rather. But eventually, if there are applications for enterprise, those can the government can be seen as a customer. And finally, investing in basic research and development. The government can play a role, whether it's grand challenges, whether it's grants to advance funding in the AR space. But they need to hear from us that it's a priority. And so what does the future hold? This is my attempt at HoloLens. So a couple of future trends. So I talked a little bit about adoption procurement of AR and AI. So that's it's something we put out in the report. And I think once government officials see that AR can be easily used for their purposes, I think they'll start to procure it more in the next 5 years and start to seek it out. Security we talked about. Now there's this issue of automation and the impact on jobs of new technologies. And we came out with a separate report just on this topic in December. And so if this were an AI conference, I would probably say that we have to think about how we train the future workforce, because a lot of the technologies are probably taking away low-income jobs. But this is an AR conference, and a lot of your technologies are helping train the future workforce. And so, that's the story that could be told about AR is AR can have a tremendous impact on training and helping workers become safer in their work environments and more productive in their work environments. And finally, global considerations. So, how the U.S. likes to think that it's the leader in technology and innovation. If other countries are investing heavily in these technologies, then that's going to impact how the U.S. thinks about it as well. And so, so my ask of you is to, like I said before, educate government officials and tell them about your product, tell them about your story, whether it's your city government or whether it's the federal government or the White House. Join these multi-stakeholder processes, no matter how frustrating they might be, and voice your thoughts directly. That's really important to hear what you think about a certain topic, especially if it impacts your products or what you're thinking about. Civic tech participation, whether it's your product that's helping solve some of the problems in our communities, or whether it's maybe doing a side project related to AR that could help solve an issue that you've seen. There's a tendency sometimes, if you're disillusioned with the political process, to go out and say, okay, well, I'm going to just kind of be in my corner. I'm not going to bother with government and politics and policy anymore. But I think that sometimes that's dangerous because then all of that will eventually impact you, and you can contribute so much to solving some of the issues that you might see. And then finally, tour of duty in government. So if you really want to roll up your sleeves, the U.S. Digital Service is a good example. They have 6 months tours of duty. You don't have to make a huge sacrifice of time, but the government needs your expertise. And so that's sort of our call to action is come join us like I did a couple of years ago. And even if you're skeptical, you can at least identify kind of what the issues are and how you can be more useful on the outside once you've been on the inside for a little bit. And so government plus taxis is a good situation. So thank you again for hearing me out. Appreciate it.